This conference will now be recorded.
Good evening. Welcome to the March 17th meeting of the, March 22nd meeting of the Auburn Finance Committee. This open meeting of the Auburn Finance Committee is being conducted both in person and remotely, consistent with Chapter 107 of the Acts of 2022, which suspends the requirements of the open meeting law to have all meetings in a publicly accessible physical location. Further, all members of public bodies are allowed to participate remotely as long as reasonable public access is afforded, so that the public can follow along with the deliberations of the meeting. For the public to join the meeting remotely by telephone, 1-786-535-3211 and access code 991-599-357, or the public can join via computer at global.gotomeeting.com, join 991-599-357. All supporting materials that have been provided to members of this body are available on the town's website, and the public is encouraged to follow along using the posted agenda. Please note that this meeting is being recorded by Auburn Cable Television. So permit me to confirm that all members and persons anticipated on the agenda participating remotely are present and can hear me. Members, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Kevin Kennedy?
Here.
Ed Coleman?
Here.
Trevor Sansucci? Michael Marshall?
Here.
Patrick Jones?
Here.
Diane Byrne? I can't hear you, though. Is it? Diane Byrne and, her volume's off.
I just tested it and it was working.
Okay. So, she's raising her hand, so she's good. And town officials and employees participating, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Town Manager Ed Kazanovich. CFO Town Accountant Karen Harnois.
Here.
Administrative Assistant Sharon Kwiatkowski. Here. Okay, please note that each vote taken in this meeting will be conducted by a roll call vote. So on tonight's agenda, we're going to look at the budgets, fiscal 2024 budgets, including operating and capital, Bay Path, Auburn School Department, and Norfolk Agricultural. And we're going to vote and transfer requests for the Fire Department, Department of Public Works, and Norfolk Agricultural. And we have some minutes from a prior meeting to look at. So, Joanna, you're here, so why don't you come on up and let's take a look at the transfers for your departments. So that's fire. Okay, here we go. So we've got several here. The first transfer is for the DPW Highway Department. The transfer is coming from the civil engineer line, which has a balance of $23,738.29. The amount requested is $4,200 going to sweeper brooms. And this transfer is needed to purchase sweeper brooms for street sweeping. Any questions?
Motion to recommend. Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to recommend. All in favor, Kevin?
Yes.
Ed?
Yes.
Mike? Patrick?
Yes.
Diane? Yes. Diane says yes, and the chair votes yes. Is this going to be okay with?
Just acknowledge that she thumbs up.
She acknowledged her thumbs up, yep. Okay, good, thank you. All right, so that transfer's all set. Our next transfer. The motion was to approve, right? The motion was to.
Approve the transfer, correct?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, the next transfer is Highway Department. The transfer is coming from the civil engineer line, which is now reduced by the previous transfer. The amount requested, $11,500, going to contracted services. This transfer is for the bidding services for the library bridge. Any questions?
Can we just get, can we just get an update on that project? I know you've had regular meetings relative to getting this project going. Is this sort of the first step in many, I'm sure we'll start to see as this starts to roll, or can we just get an update through the chair?
Sure. So we have a close to 100% design prepared. So we're going to be going into the permitting, getting the environmental permitting done. And hopefully we'll be going into, start bidding for this spring. And we're also working on the library side, kind of coordinating with the architect as well as his electrical engineer and looking at the sprinkler system as well. So they're both ongoing. I know that the site work is going to be we're looking at bidding this spring. I'm not exactly sure of the timing for the addition, but they'll be forthcoming as well.
I have a question. Didn't we approve money at town meeting to pay for this project?
Yes, so the bidding, we're a little bit short-staffed in the engineering department.
Yep.
So, we're just getting a little bit more help from, our consultant for the bidding process. This is something that a lot of times we do in-house, but, this will just streamline the process.
It's got to go outside. Okay, I understand. All right, thank you. Any questions?
Motion to approve?
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve. All in favor? Kevin?
Yes.
Ed? Yes. Mike?
Yes.
Patrick? No. You said yes? All right.
Said no.
No, okay. And Diane? Diane, thumbs up? Yep. And the chair votes yes. All right. The next transfer is, the money is coming from the civil engineer line. Okay. And the amount requested is $15,000, and that's going to motor vehicle repair. This is for repairs of DPW and police vehicles. I want to ask a question, because I noticed we have two other transfers also going to motor vehicle repair for a total of $30,000. Will this get us through the year?
Most likely not. I think we're probably gonna be coming back, for additional transfers. This will get us through probably another month. I'm hoping that because hopefully we're past the winter season and the larger trucks, obviously they require, they bring out bigger bills for the repairs. So now that we're not going to be using the Sanders, hopefully anymore, it might slow down, but I can see us probably being back for additional.
Madam Chair, in my recommendation, I had a discussion with both Joanna and Nick. They had identified a need to get us through the end of the fiscal year, pegged around 50. And so there are a number of vacant positions that have accumulated a surplus that they're looking to fill. So I suggested that at this time, we go in for 30 without relying on an additional 20 out of the reserve account, thinking that we may be able to sweep those vacant positions and fund it from within. That being said, we know going in tonight, they're asking for 30. They wanted 50. There's an expectation that we will be back at some point in time looking for that, up to an additional 20. And hopefully, fingers crossed, maybe we don't have to ask for that amount of money. But certainly, I just want to put the Finance Committee on notice that this may not get us through the end of the fiscal year.
So are these costs for repairs being done off-site or like parts related to repairs that we're doing ourselves?
It's a combination of both. So there are some vehicles that, we have a vehicle that we just sent out that they're still trying to figure out what's wrong with it. So certain things we're not able to fix in-house, but a lot of the costs are materials and parts.
Question, Mr. Kesselman, I don't recall the amount that we increased motor vehicle repair by. Did we increase it by at least the 50,000? I'm just curious, see if we have enough money for next year.
So we thought maybe last year, I know there were 3 large transfers that came in, and we were not knowing the maintenance history, because the software wasn't tracking it. That may be an anomaly. Although we did increase it, let me see, I think to 235,000, Joanna, from To
This year's
250.
recommendation, 260.
Okay. Thank you.
So that is an increase, but
Yeah.
it may not be adequate enough if this trend continues.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Okay. Did they try to do that? Okay. Okay, any questions? Yes, no?
Motion to approve?
So we have a motion and a second to approve. All in favor, Kevin?
Yes.
Ed?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Patrick?
Yes.
Diane? Diane says yes. Okay, good. So the next transfer is coming from the reserve fund and going to motor vehicle repairs, $10,000. Mrs. Kazanovich, what's our balance in the reserve fund? Even approximately, is it?
Like $240,000?
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Any questions about this transfer?
Motion to approve?
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve. All in favor, Kevin?
Yes.
Ed?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Patrick?
Yes.
Diane? Diane says yes, and chair votes yes. All right, next transfer is DPW fleet maintenance, coming from fleet wages, which has a balance of $8,958.03. Amount requested $5,000 going to motor vehicle repair. Transfer is needed to repair vehicles. Yes?
Have we seen an increase in like overtime for the fleet maintenance division related to these repairs, or is it?
Most of it is not. The only overtime would be for the fire, because it's more on a emergency basis. For us, for the DPW, for the repairs, we do have a mechanic that stays on site during snowstorms, so it's covered under the snow and ice budget.
Just a follow-up on that, but why wouldn't we be offering overtime to our town mechanics before we're sending stuff outside? Is that, maybe I'm not understanding which vehicles are requiring outside services, but,
So it's not as much as timing as much as we might not have the equipment or the ability to fix the vehicles, and that's when they're getting sent out.
All set?
motion to approve?
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve. All in favor, Kevin?
Yes.
Ed?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Patrick?
Yes.
Diane? Diane says yes, and chair votes yes. All right, now the transfer of the cemetery department, the transfer is coming from the heating oil line, which has a balance of $2,415.19, and the amount requested is $2,375 going to building maintenance, and this is for a new water heater with installation. Questions?
Just a question, is that being done by our facilities folks, or are we contracting out for that?
That was a contractor, that was an outside.
Thank you.
Question. So, and I think I know the answer, but I just want to make sure. On the next page, we have a transfer into heating oil, but it's sewer division. Is that it's a separate line item? Okay.
Motion to approve?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve. All in favor, Kevin?
Yes.
Ed?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Patrick?
Yes.
Diane? Diane's yes, and the chair votes yes. Okay, the last transfer, Joanna's departments, let's see, DPW Sewer Division, there's 4 transfers. They're all coming from the same account, Ms. Kazanovich. Can we take them together if they're all?
You can take them together.
Okay, do I hear a motion, these are transfers, the 4 of them are all coming from the wages line. Do I hear a motion to take these 4 together?
Madam Chair, motion to take 4 transfers as one from the account.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second to take these 4 transfers as one. All in favor, Kevin?
Yes.
Ed?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Patrick?
Yes.
Diane?
Yes.
Yes, and the chair votes yes. So, they're all coming from wages, which has a balance of $40,162.68. The first transfer is going to heating oil for $500. The second transfer from wages is going to $3,000 going to education for additional safety training for employees. The third transfer coming from wages is for $1,000 going to chemical supply because there's a shortage in the account due to price increases and increased chemical use. And the fourth transfer coming from wages, $10,000 going to the repair line to cover previously unanticipated sewer station pump repairs. So, $14,500 in total. Questions? Yes, sir.
Just, can you go over the issues with the stations, the pumping stations, and where we're at and which stations? Because I know you've invested in new stations and stuff over the last several years, just with what this involves.
Sure, so this particular repair is for our Holstrom Court pump station, so that's one of our older stations and one of our bigger stations. It was one of the pumps, the impeller needs to be replaced. So it has 4 pumps, one of them needs replacement, or not the entire pump, but just the impeller. So we're running on 3 pumps now. We still have plenty of power, so that's why we have redundancy, but we want to get that back up and running.
And just a matter of, as a process goes, are we exempt when we have bigger numbers like this relative to going out to contractors because it's an emergency job, or do we have vendors on contract for jobs like this? How does that work in terms of purchasing, just in regards to are we getting the best price for these services?
So it depends on the service and the product. We always try to go and get three quotes if it's a low enough threshold. Sometimes we need to go with a proprietary product just because we're replacing a part and not the entire unit. So sometimes we're limited to that, but we're always trying to look elsewhere to get multiple prices.
No, I understand, but like on something like this where it's one of 4, so did this piece go out for three quotes, 3 bids on this one, or is this?
I think, I'm not sure if it was, because it's basically refurbishing a part, so it's more of a service than purchasing a new item. So I believe for this one, it's the actual manufacturer of the pump itself that would be fixing it.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions? Okay.
Motion to approve?
We have a motion and a second to approve these transfers from the wages line. All in favor, Kevin?
Yes.
Ed?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Patrick?
Yes.
Diane? Diane says yes, and chair votes yes.
Thank you so much.
Okay, all set, thank you, thanks, Joanna. So, we have 3 other transfers that we're gonna, 2 other transfers, we're gonna wait till the end of the meeting, to look at those. So right now, we have Dr. Chamberlain, hello, from the Auburn Schools. Okay. My microphone seems to be working on my end, okay. Yeah. What should I say? Okay. I don't know. All right.
Okay, is that good? All right,
Yep, you're presenting, yep.
I followed directions well, all right. So thank you, everyone, I'm happy to be here this evening to present to you the school department FY24 budget. This collaborative effort took place with staff, administrators, central office, all keeping in mind the needs of our students and a respect for the support that the townspeople of Auburn have always given us. Our mission, vision, and continue to stay as they have been, trying to prepare our students for the opportunities and challenges of a changing world. We're also committed to creating and maintaining a supportive environment that fosters a sense of belonging for all students without regard to race, color, sex, religion, national origin, sexual orientation, gender identity, homelessness, poverty, spoken language, and ability. This budget reflects the goals found in our newly adopted 2023-2026 strategic plan approved by our school committee this past February. This plan reflects recommendations of an equity audit that was conducted last spring, and we've combined that with our previous strategic plan, along with some new ideas to ensure that all of our students feel safe and they're challenged to their full potential. We are also continue to be committed to the social and emotional well-being of our kids, as I am sure you see on the news and hear every day. Kids are struggling, and we have to be there to support them. The recently adopted strategic plan has 3 areas of focus: teaching and learning, health, wellness, and safety, and community partnerships. Of course, we're committed to providing a rigorous academic experience for kids, social emotional learning opportunities, and all of that in a culturally conscious, inclusive environment. Our physical safety remains a priority for us, for our kids and our staff. And our community partnerships have always been a hallmark of this community, and we continue to look to find ways to continue those partnerships and enhance them even further. This is simply a historical representation of the enrollment in the Auburn Public Schools. You'll see that this year our overall enrollment is at 2,570 students. This is lower than our highest enrollment year, which was 2018. That was at 2,637 students. I've also provided you with an overall of our class size. There continue to be fluctuations between Bryn Mawr and Packagug, and we work to use some creative thinking to how to mitigate those and maintain equity. But at the high school and middle school, we're pretty steady with appropriate class sizes. This year, we have 17 school choice students at Auburn Middle School and 58 at Auburn High School, for a total of 75 students. Just recently, the school committee for the 23-24 school year has approved an additional 15 students at Auburn Middle and Auburn High School. This will accommodate for 13 graduating school choice seniors this year, which is a pretty big amount in one class. And we have a very small incoming grade 6 class coming from grade 5, so we only have 170 students coming up in grade 6. We don't know if all of these slots will be filled for school choice, but that certainly is a place where we've come to rely on financially to support the school. We take applications through the end of March, so we'll wait to see how that plays out. So more to come on that to see how many we can actually accept. Here you'll see our information on free and reduced school lunch. You'll see that there's a slight decrease between this year and last year in some areas. We believe this is most likely due to the fact that, as you know, school lunch has been free for all students due to the pandemic, and that has carried us through this year. And what often happens is people don't realize that they should still fill out the paperwork and that there are other benefits associated with that. But if they don't fill out the free and reduced paperwork, they aren't counted as such. We are waiting to hear on what the state will do on next year. There's a lot of discussion on continuing it into next year, but time will tell. So we certainly hope. It's been a tremendous benefit to our families, and we hope that it continues, but yet to be determined. So some considerations: we've maintained our staffing levels to keep our class sizes appropriate, 25 or less at the elementary levels, and staffing levels to meet the needs of students with disabilities. For the enrollment counts, as usual, our October 1st numbers we used. We basically level funded materials and supplies at each of the schools and buildings. The only new positions you'll see reflected in this budget is a special education teacher and an ABA for a substantially separate classroom at Swanson Road School. For the past several years, we disbanded that class because we were able to keep kids either at the primary level or move them up to the middle school level, which saved us a little bit in staffing. But we now have 8 students that will be transitioning to that grade band, and we need to have a classroom to support them. It becomes too overwhelming at this point to keep some at primary and some at middle. So that's the reason for that. And again, a focus on the social and emotional well-being of kids. This budget reflects instructional assistants and ABAs where they are this year. We've already started the process of looking at who may need to transfer and move, because they move based on the needs of the students. So as I just said, we have 8 students transitioning to Swanson. There is likely that either staff from Bryn Mawr or Packagug will transfer there as well to meet those needs. We have thankfully had an amazing and robust nursing corps. I cannot even tell you how valuable they have been to us. We have Kerry Estrella is our new lead nurse, and she's been amazing. We level-funded grant monies using FY23 amounts for the entitlement grants that we get each year. We've projected the Medicaid reimbursement to be $125,000 as adjusted and approved at the fall town meeting. Special education circuit breaker reimbursement is anticipated conservatively at 70%, which is a typical, I'm sorry, you can't see that part of the screen. I'm afraid if I exit out, something will go badly, so I'm going to leave it there. And bus registration fees will be utilized to provide $145,000 in offsets. I will tell you that we have a new fee structure for our bus transportation. Folks, if anyone's listening, you have till May 1st to stay at the same price you've been paying for some years, and after that, the price will incrementally go up. We found ourselves almost in a bit of a jam last year with late enrollments, and we need to know ahead of time how many kids we have to transport so that that all works out appropriately. So we're taking a new aim at that. We continue to maximize the use of revolving accounts for satellite and Galaxy, preschool, and athletics. Again, I've already talked about school choice, that we've upped the numbers there, hoping that that will financially help us out. We've budgeted again for 11 regular education buses, that, assuming that about the same number of students will ride. Increases in electricity, fuel, and contracted services, as everyone is seeing everywhere, are reflected there as well. Oil pricing was done in conjunction with the French River Collaborative for a price of $3.0442 per gallon. And the electricity contract, that was done last year, and I think that got us to about 12 cents. And that was done in conjunction with the town. We continue to use our solar credits as we have previously, and our projected offsets are $3,737,040. We also have, I can't see the amount right now on that slide, but about $500,000 from ESSER. But again, that's a one-time fund, and that funding vanishes in '24, in the fall of 2024. So we have recently, this year, found out that there was a 14% unanticipated increase in special education private school tuition. This was kind of unilaterally done by the Operational Division of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts Executive Office, and there was no discussion about it. So those prices went up 14%. So if our kids are there, we have a 14% increase in tuition. For Auburn, that results in about $100,000 for the students that are impacted by that. There is currently lots of work still happening at the state level, looking for what some have called a pothole account, or another source of funding to alleviate some of this, this impact on districts. If that doesn't come to be, we may have to look at the special education stabilization account that's been established. I don't know for how many years that's been in place. Yeah, it's been a bit. And thankfully, because if this turns out to be a rainy day in this area, that's exactly what that account is for, is to help us to mitigate that. But I have to believe, there are some districts hit so hard by this 14% that I have to believe that some funding will come forward. Whether or not it will cover that $100,000 is yet to be determined. So that is the one outstanding kind of issue yet. So again, we present to you a draft budget of $30,132,276. This is a $1,159,206 increase over the FY23 amended and approved budget, resulting in a 4% increase for this year. And I just want to finish by saying how grateful I am and we are to be a part of this community and all the support that the townspeople and the town leadership has given to us. So I thank you, and I welcome any questions you may have.
Thank you very much, I appreciate that. Let's see, let's open up for questions. Kevin?
No, nothing at this time.
Okay. Ed? Michael? Patrick?
I do have just one
Yep.
question of clarification. Dr. Chamberlain, can you tell me, because I'm just getting on board with some of the school stuff, is the solar credits, do those ebb and flow for you? Do some years they come and some years they don't? Am I correct in that thought?
Do you want us to address that? It's not that they don't come, but they come to a varying degree, I think.
Right, varying degree, right.
They do ebb and flow, and it depends
depends upon the weather patterns. If we're having particularly sunny days and not a lot of overcast days, we get more solar credits applied. But if there's, excuse me?
Drought.
Yeah, but we've had a lot of overcast days this year. We do currently still get from the Rutland project. I know that has decreased a little bit through the years. We're in a 20-year lease or 20-year program with them, and then our rooftop solar arrays as well. But it does ebb and flow, but it does assist us with our, especially with the increase in electricity costs, so. No problem.
Our solar array, which is in Rutland, actually was taken offline for a bit of time for some repairs and upgrades. So we weren't recognizing the credits over a period of time. But as Cecilia indicated, there are peaks and there are valleys relative to the credits that we're getting. Some of our credits on the town side were stacked up for over a year. We just got a credit, and I think I indicated this during the discussion of general services. We got a credit of $165,000 that's going to be blown out to various accounts. So we're going to see a benefit from that, but it left us scratching our heads. Where are our credits? They seem to have been diminished, and we weren't sure why. But now that we've gotten that lump credit, they weren't reporting it correctly. So our energy manager is now monitoring that on a monthly basis, and so hopefully that won't happen again. Now, relative to the budget, I can tell you, even though it's a 4% increase, it's a very lean budget. We combed through that budget, both the superintendent and the school business manager. I think there are 2 positions that they requested, one full-time ABA and another full-time
Special education teacher.
teacher. That is a requirement under the law. It did pain me to trim their budget by $100,000, but at the time, I didn't have the state aid numbers. We were working with a very tight budget. That's something we can revisit, and I'm hoping through additional state aid, either through circuit breaker, pothole money, or other mechanisms, we'll be allowed to address that without dipping into the sped stabilization. And I can have a discussion with both Beth and Cecilia as to whether or not there may be an opportunity to feed that special ed reserve if we peel back $100,000 with FY23 monies. Certainly, it's too early to make that determination, but that's something we're monitoring as we move closer towards the end of the fiscal year.
Okay, thank you.
So just to build upon what the town manager said, just as a compliment to the school department, I know the school budget is a big percentage of the annual budget, and, there's always a little bit of push and shove within the community as to how big the percentage is and who has students in schools and who doesn't, but really a compliment to, I think you always, at my time on this committee, has really presented very responsible budgets. Cecilia does a tremendous job at what she does behind the scenes to bring these numbers in. So it really a very modest ask here, and then hopefully, again, these were numbers like Ed said, when we weren't sure how good the state numbers were going to be, but really very responsible. And having 3 kids, I'll give my 3 kids currently in the Auburn Public Schools, tremendous, just a tremendous job. I mean, just do a tremendous job with the kids, and from before the school day to after the school day, it's really very, very well. So my compliments to all of you. My second question is, and it's not a budget that is yours, but it's one that impacts you, and we always have questions, and you're not necessarily here to ask the questions, but the Youth Commission budget, which historically goes, I think almost their entire budget goes right towards Auburn Youth and Family Services, which indirectly impacts services within the school department. Can you explain that relationship a little bit so that we have a better understanding when they come before us?
So I'm not going to be the best one to explain that, but what I know is I meet with Sally at the start of each year. She has a contracted number of hours through that funding that she is to provide to the schools through counseling services and that type of thing. I know at this point this year, my understanding is we have maxed out those hours. And so we are taking full advantage of that as a connection. So I don't know the ins and outs of how that works and how that funding source works for her, but what I do know is it was difficult for her during COVID because we couldn't let people in the buildings, and that put a little glitch in it during COVID. But we are back to full collaboration with having her staff in for counseling services. And to some degree, they're doing some, I know at Swanson Road, some is happening after school during our satellite program, so that students aren't pulled out of classroom for that support as well.
And we'll discuss it more, you know, I think you mentioned the social emotional is huge when it comes to kids, and that we can see that across all town departments, that when they're, you know, under a state of stress, that other town departments are having to step in, provide services. Unfortunately, you know, not always in the most positive, because they've reached that crisis sort of stage. So any support in the earlier age, you know, age of stuff is certainly, I think it's critical for these kids. So they're
Great team,
successful.
too. We have a great team of guidance counselors and social workers now in the buildings that are doing tremendous work. Never mind just the relationships that our classroom teachers are working to build with kids, because we know that when kids have a relationship with a positive adult, the chances of them doing well goes up exponentially. So we've been working tremendously hard on that at all levels.
And my third bullet that I wrote down here was, and it's not a today, but it just says, looking to the future. School facilities, Joe Fahey and the staff, they do a tremendous job with what they have. I mean, we have a world-class high school, you know, the middle school is unbelievable. You know, intermediate school got some upgrades at the time when that transition was made, but the two elementary schools are sort of getting older and not necessarily meeting every capacity in terms of accessibility and things of that nature. Has the school committee and your department started to look to the future, whether it's a 5, 10, 20-year plan as to what we might be looking at? And is the school building resource, I forget that state agency's
Yes,
name. Are
SBA,
they still,
School
is it
Building
still an
Authority.
actively funded entity?
It is, it is. And we have, recently, the school committee approved the formation of a building subcommittee. So I'll be putting that together so that we can start to just, you know, much like Dr. Brunel did back before the middle school, to like take a walk through. Let's go look at what our buildings look like. Let's look at the capacity. Let's look at our classrooms and put together a plan looking further down the road. You're absolutely right. Our primary schools are tight, and, you know, they're older buildings. They work well. We make very, very good use of what we have, so in no way is that intended to be a complaint. But we do need to be forward-thinking. You know, if some of the building projects in town go forward, that can certainly have an impact on the schools. Right now, we're in good shape. That's partly why I shared that enrollment with you, right? We've handled a lot more a number of more students, about 67 in the past, with what we have. But Auburn is growing, and so we do need to be looking forward. So that subcommittee will be starting, so we can begin to formulate a plan for that.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Ed, do you have questions?
Oh, yes, through the chair, I should know the answer to this, but I don't, so I apologize, but, so, on the positions on, when it says to be negotiated, the contracts, is that built into the reserve fund in terms, so you estimate?
It is. We have a salary reserve line that we use for that.
Okay. Is there, do you have a quick summary of what contracts are still being negotiated?
Normally, the ones that fall under that are all the administrators. So central office, myself, Cecilia, Director of Pupil Services, all of the principals, the assistant principals.
Individual contracts like math pairs.
Yeah, so we do have some folks on individual contracts, right? Some that are funded even by Title I that go through that. Our tech department, so those people. Anyone that's not in a bargaining unit. So we have the teachers, secretaries, custodians, IAs, ABAs, and food service workers are all in bargaining units or unions, and the rest are individual contracts.
Just two other quick questions. I tend to always ask this every year, but on any insights on retirement in term, was this a big year for retirement? Has it stabilized over the last couple of years?
It seems to have stabilized a little bit, but, you know, you always have a few each year, but that's kind of seemingly where we're back to, a few each year.
And then final question, any new
Yeah, so that's a big question, because we never know sometimes what's coming down the pike. You know, the Student Opportunity Act was something that initially, my understanding was gonna be a separate funding source, and now they've rolled that into, that's really our Chapter 70 funding, and we have to be accountable for exactly how much of our Chapter 70 money is used toward learning loss and directly impacting students. So that's more of a reporting issue than anything, but not really. I have to believe almost, since ESSER 3 is going to be running out next year, that there may be additional funding that comes down the line, because there may be something coming. And they continue to put pressure on the state around the funding around special education, which has never been at the level that it needs to be. And I will tell you, our number of students on IEPs is increasing each year. I think last year we had about 343 students on IEPs. This year we're already at 350, but we have 14 that will be signed soon. So that will add to that, and a number of others who are still just being evaluated. So that's a wait and see to see how many of those students qualify. Some of them are for social emotional kind of things, but we still have that issue around learning loss. I did have a meeting with the commissioner today that talked about some acceleration camps and some opportunities for intensive tutoring that will be free, supposedly. We don't have the information on that yet, but once we get it, we will apply for something like that to help our kids too. So nothing big that I am aware of, I will say that.
To piggyback on Ed's question, it looks like a lot of the administrative positions are to be negotiated. How long do we typically do those contracts, and are we staggering them at all, or are we doing, like, negotiating those contracts every year?
Yeah, so most administrators, this won't be for all those positions, but most administrators, by law, we have to evaluate them each year, right? There's a performance evaluation. And so they may have a 3-year contract or a 5-year contract, but nonetheless, the salary isn't, for those years, isn't negotiated ahead of time. That's negotiated on a yearly basis. So that's why most of them are noted as such.
Thank you. Question? So I just have a couple of questions. Are there any, where's the school department in terms of the contracts, like teacher contracts and any other contracts? Is anything being negotiated now or expiring at the end of this fiscal year?
Well, today, we just signed the third one we've negotiated this year. We signed custodians today. We completed secretaries and instructional assistants earlier this year. Next year will be teachers.
Nurses, right?
And the nurses are included in the teacher's contract, and ABAs.
Okay, so their teachers is expiring then in June of 2024? Okay, thank you.
Yes.
My other question was regarding, the sped stabilization account, what is the balance in that account approximately?
About $560,000.
Okay.
That was some great forethinking. That was some great thinking ahead for the folks that did that.
Yes, it was, excellent.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
there is a limitation on, as to how much you can put in there.
Right.
I believe it's 2%.
Percent of the net school spending for that year.
So I think we're bumping right up, I think we're there.
We've been trying
Yeah.
to keep it right.
So we can't put any more in there than what's already in there. There may be a little capacity, but I think where we should be. So in terms of a consideration to withdraw some of that, that would require a majority vote of a joint meeting between the Board of Selectmen and the school committee. I don't think we've ever withdrawn any money out of that account since we established it. So it's serving its purpose, it's there for a rainy day, the rainy day is here, but we're gonna look at other opportunities maybe to resolve that $100,000 hole, maybe through some other funding sources, but that's something that we would delay probably until the fall.
Okay, great. What about the bus contract? What year are we in that?
Well, we're in year 3 of the contract, but we had options to extend for 2 additional years for 24 and 25. Because AA was the lone bidder, I went back to, they had given us what the cost would be for year 24 and 25. I went back to the negotiation table with them, and I was able to get them from the pricing that they originally gave us back down lower a lot on the pricing. So we have, with school committee approval, we agreed to carry through for 24 and 25. So we will be covered for busing, and we've had a great relationship with AA, and they've been an excellent vendor for us, so. But I was able to get them down from, they were looking at like a 12% increase over the 2 years. I was able to get them down to roughly about 9. They've been seeing, I've been looking and speaking with other business managers, and the increases, people are going out to bid right now. This was the best scenario for us, I believe, because the increases are in the double digits, and it's very problematic. And transportation costs across the board for special ed, homeless transportation, DCF, Department of Children and Families, all that transportation costs, they've been increasing. So we're hopeful that the state will continue to look into it with the circuit breaker funding and provide some help with that, because it's been much more on our plate as far as handling through the budget, so.
Okay, thank you, that's great. And so I assume the contract doesn't have any fuel inflation.
There's no fuel escalation cost.
Great, that's great. And I was just going to make a comment on the enrollment numbers. It's great to see that we're maintaining those numbers at a good balance. Thank God for school choice, you know what I mean? Because that allows us to bring in students, but not too many, and still maintain those services for the kids in our middle and high school. And I believe in terms of demographics, the number of students and children is declining in the state. So, I mean, it's good to see that we're not seeing that kind of decrease in the budget. Thank you. Thank you. All right. Any other questions?
I just wanted to echo on, because it was brought up again, that my hope is that the 14% increase that you're facing with the SPED and the stabilization account, that the state, since they've sort of mandated it, will help, that it'll take care of itself. So, there are multiple sources. I'm confident that, I think it's going to take care of itself.
I will tell you that the Association of School Superintendents is putting a full court press on Beacon Hill about that, because it's a tremendous amount of money across the state, tremendous amount of money. So hopefully that will work. I actually just sent a letter to our representatives and senator yesterday, so.
I like that basketball, a full court press by the superintendent. That's great. Thank you.
Okay, great. So, any other questions? I think we're all set. So let's see,
Do we want to do the CIP too?
let's vote on this first.
Vote
I
on it
think.
first,
Yep.
okay, thank
So we're looking at on the school department, the department request was $3,232,276, which is a 4.35% increase to fiscal 2023. Town manager recommendation was $30,132,276. Excuse me, which is the 4% increase. Do I hear a motion to recommend the town manager line?
Motion to recommend? Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to recommend that amount. All in favor? Kevin?
Yes.
Ed?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Patrick?
Yes.
Diane? And the chair votes yes. Thank you. All right, good. So let's look at the CIP now, the school department CIP. So it's two from the back on the CIP. Okay. And let's see, for this year, fiscal 2024, let's see, building rehab for Bryn Mawr, $125,000. Building rehab for Packagug, $15,000. Building rehab for the high school, $280,000. $75,000 building rehab district-wide playground. So the building rehab total is $495,000. Then we go down to $150,000 to the iPad initiative, $200,000 system-wide tech furniture and equipment, giving an equipment total of $350,000, so for total CIP of $845,000. Do we have any questions about that? We're going to vote on the CIP later, at the end, but do we have any questions now, or? Yes, sir.
My only question was, saw like some HVAC improvements and, I'm just curious how much of this is like eligible for grants or, like, you know, reimbursement, if any.
So I don't know if you're aware of this, but we're doing a town-wide study on our HVAC, which I believe includes some of the school systems. How that relates to what's being requested here, I'm not quite sure. We'd have to take a look at that. But we plan on taking a request to the Board of Selectmen after we receive a study from an engineering firm on our HVAC systems that would make certain recommendations and upgrades on various buildings throughout town. That could be as high as $1.5 million, and that may offer some relief to this. If it is, we would not authorize this for a borrowing if in fact we're using ARPA funds to cover some of those costs. Great question, thank you.
All set? Okay, I think we're all set. Thank you very much, Dr. Chamberlain.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you all for the support. We appreciate it a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Madam Chair, can I ask at this time, because I see our fire chief is on the dashboard, if we could do his transfers now?
Absolutely. Okay, absolutely. So, hello, Chief Coleman.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the committee.
Transfer out. There is, there's one transfer for the, three transfers for the fire department. The first transfer is coming from the firefighter salary account. Amount requested $2,000 to go to building maintenance account to cover deficit in account and other expenses. Any questions?
Motion to approve?
Second.
Okay, we have motion and second to approve. All in favor? Kevin?
Yes.
Ed?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Patrick?
Yes.
Diane? And the chair votes yes. The next transfer is coming from the firefighter salary account, which has a balance of $34,533.18. Amount requested $12,054 going to the protective gear account, and this is to pay for turnout gear. Do we have questions about that? Yep.
Madam Chair, how many sets does that involve, and why do we need this transfer? Is this new hires, or?
Yes, through the chair, this is 3 sets of new turnout gear for the new hires.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions?
Motion to approve?
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve. All in favor, Kevin?
Yes.
Ed?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Patrick?
Yes.
Diane? And chair votes yes. Okay, and the third transfer is coming from the training account, which has a balance of $22,000, $22,653. $20,433 is requested to go to the overtime account to cover a deficit. Questions?
Madam Chair, do we anticipate this, Chief, do we anticipate this covering us for the remainder, or for overtime?
It will not. I am trying to, I do have some additional money left in the firefighter salary account, but just kind of going back to the building maintenance account, I don't anticipate that this will be enough for building maintenance either, but I'm trying to take the transfers sort of slow, month by month. I don't want to transfer, make a lot of transfers into these accounts, and then, you know, at the end of the year, have to transfer it out. So much like building maintenance, which I anticipate to be back before the end of the year, it will be the same with overtime. This year, we've had 3 long-term injuries. I've had 2 members out on family medical leave this year. Before the end of this fiscal year, I'll have another out on family medical leave. And we're really, in some respects, where even though the position was filled, Lieutenant Paul Wood's position was filled, that firefighter is still not being counted towards the complement because she's still new within her probationary period, so she's not counting towards shift. So in some respects, we, you know, technically we have a vacancy, even though the position's been filled. So not to mention that in this year's contract, the firefighters received their COLA adjustment and other contractual obligations as far as, you know, the officers' pay, they received that on January 1st. So since January 1, even if you were to look at the same number of overtime hours, because the COLA has not now gone into effect on January 1, you know, in some respects, you know, we're going to be paying, you know, approximately $5,000 more for the balance of this 26 weeks than we were on the same number of overtime hours, you know, the first 6 months. So, but because the COLA kicked in on January 1st. So I do anticipate that we're going to need a couple of more transfers, but I do need to sit with the town manager and the CFO to kind of outline exactly where I think we are going to be with what I may have for funds available within the budget versus what I'm going to need possibly from the reserve account.
Thank you, Chief. Yes, sir, Mike?
As a follow-up, and I could be wrong, but is the training account, isn't that a contractual obligation typically? And so are we covered through the end of the year on the training account since we're almost emptying it?
So the training account, most of the contractual obligations come from the professional development line. The training account is for training that would be conducted off-duty. So I have suspended all off-duty training for the rest of this fiscal year in order to be able to capture this money.
Great, thank you.
Any other questions?
Motion to approve?
We have a motion and a second to approve. All in favor, Kevin?
Yes.
Ed?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Patrick?
Yes.
And Diane? And the chair votes yes. Thank you, Chief Coleman.
Thank you very much. Have a good night.
You too. All right, so we have two other budgets to look at.
Madam Chair, we have just Norfolk too, right?
We have a Norfolk transfer and then, yeah, do you want to do, well, let's do the Norfolk transfer when we talk about the Norfolk budget. Okay, so let's look now at the Bay Path budget. Okay, and we received a lot of information from Bay Path.
So, Madam Chair, if I may, before we get into Bay Path, I thought maybe I had dropped the ball. But I reviewed my email, and I notified the school business manager on March 16th that they would be scheduled to come before this committee on the 22nd at 6:30. So I don't know what happened. An email was sent, I know it's a minor increase. I will tell you that the school enrollment is down by a count of 1. And I know they were waiting, like we were waiting to get the state numbers to see how that translated in terms of FY '24 assessment. So it's a minor increase. I can tell you that their operational increase was minimal. I think they try to hold the line as best they can in an effort to minimize the assessments to their member communities. But beyond that, I can't answer any additional questions because I did not have a sit-down with them in advance of this meeting.
Okay, I understand, thank you. So do you know when, I see we're putting money in, there's a debt service for the building project and the enlargement and improvements at Bay Path. Do you know when that's done?
So I would have to say that's a 20-year purpose. It's probably,
Are we in year 10?
I don't think we're at year 10 yet, no. If I were to throw a number at you, I'd say 13 years.
13
years remaining.
13 years remaining, okay. All right, so, I'm looking at the information that Bay Path sent us. Does anyone have any questions?
I just have one question, Madam Chair. On the assessment, while we're on it, I believe that's a diminishing principal and interest, that as we pay off that assessment, the numbers in our presentation should be going down.
Good.
I believe, that I'm more asking, is that a,
I would say that's a fair assessment. Typically, unless they have a level debt service schedule, then it won't go down. But I don't know how they, I don't know how they formatted that. We'd have to have a discussion with, I don't have a debt schedule here, so.
Thank you, Patrick. Any other questions?
I guess I don't know if the town manager can answer this, but I noticed that we're still consistently the highest seated, and I'm wondering if that just continues to stay that way. Is it that they accept our students before others, or why is that Auburn manages to take the most seats?
So it was my understanding that Southbridge has the most seats. And it goes by,
Southbridge only has 45. And on the freshmen, I was sort of doing.
on the freshmen?
Well, I was looking around and I didn't know, I was trying to determine, in the freshmen, we have more seats than other people. And last year, I believe, I recall, we were top seated as well. So that's why we had the larger number of people.
Well, we have the largest capital population of the towns. The largest, with the largest amount of school-age children.
I just know it affects the ratio, Madam Chair, and I was trying to break that down, because even though, our ratio is higher, the capital population of just even Charlton is close to us, but they seem to be relatively lower, so.
I think when you look at total enrollment as it applies to the member communities, Southbridge, actually, Charlton leads with 211, followed by Southbridge at 208, and we have 117. So there are a lot of other communities that have higher enrollment than we do, although I don't know, if you're looking at the
Well, it depends
incoming
which schedule
freshmen.
you're looking at, right? That's why I was
Yeah.
trying to.
So I don't know what's driving that. I think, certainly COVID had a lot to do with it. A lot of people were moving their kids from public to parochial schools for a number of reasons. I don't know if there was a similar type attitude or situation that is really driving this enrollment as well. I can't say.
I think that the 50 is so we have maybe a larger amount of seats that our students could take, but we just don't have as many students going as some other towns. Yeah, I think that's how it breaks down. Thank you. You're welcome. Okay, yes, sir. Oh,
Mine, I'm sorry, do you want to finish your question? Okay. No, mine's more just of a comment. We've struggled with getting Bay Path here in previous years. Last year, I think, was one of the first years we've seen them come out. It's a complicated budget. It's not a huge number comparatively to Auburn Public Schools, but regional school committees, it's complicated. And questions like Patrick said, there's a bunch of different formulas and stuff. And I don't know where the ball is dropped, but I think it's extremely unprofessional, and I'm not very happy about it, so.
that municipal growth factor, that's what they have to multiply.
It's a very complex formula.
They're the folks that should be able to explain it more easily. And it's not just for the folks here on this committee. The residents of the town deserve to know where their monies are going. If they have questions to be asked, they should be answered by the representatives of Bay Path. So I'm not very happy they're not here.
If the committee, through the chair, if the committee would like us to reach out and try to get them in at a later date, whether it be next week or the final April meeting, before you take a position on the warrant, we'd be happy to do so. I don't have an explanation as to why they're not here tonight.
Maybe we'll talk about that at the end, before we adjourn, okay?
Sure, and I think I just want to add too, that I believe that the formulation of this is that their board votes on it, and the surrounding communities just sort of have to accept it. And so there's just some confusion in my end as far as, what we're put to task to understand and what we're put to task to actually contribute.
Do we have to have 6 out of 8 vote, or is that just for the debt service? That was just for the debt.
No, I think, Patrick, you are correct. I think if a number of communities fail to approve or the assessment, then I think it has to go back to Bay Path for reconsideration. And I don't know what that ratio is. Are you familiar?
Okay, well, let me,
And it's unique based upon district, because they each kind of have their own unique charter, so even as it relates to capital assessments and things of that nature, it varies from district to district.
maybe we want to hold on the recommendation for this budget. Do we want, let's decide now. I want to have someone from Bay Path come in, and then we'll vote that evening?
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion to postpone the recommendations on this budget.
So we have a motion and a second. Do we need to make a motion for that?
I would make a motion only because that's going to initiate a call from us to say, listen, this matter is on hold.
So we have a motion and a second to delay the vote on the recommendation for the Bay Path budget. All in favor, Kevin?
Yes.
Ed? Mike?
Yes.
Patrick?
Yes.
Diane? Diane's yes, and the chair votes yes. Okay, so we have one more budget to look at, and one more transfer, and that's the Norfolk Agricultural. How many students do we have attending? It looks like one, right?
Hold on, let me just take a
Sure.
look at that.
Seems,
Oh,
oh, good, thank you.
oh, I didn't know you were still
Good.
here.
Yeah, well, we stayed because I knew the Norfolk was on, so I figured, we have one student currently enrolled there. We have been told that that student will hopefully will remain there. We don't have any currently in the pipeline for next year, just that one student. And there'll be a
Celia, what
sophomore.
grade level is that student at, do you know?
Is a freshman this year. It'll be
Okay.
a sophomore.
I know we
student will
had
be a
two.
sophomore. We did, and they graduated. We've had a couple, and there's been two that have graduated,
Okay.
so.
And are we working with another community, collaborating with another community on transportation?
What we do is it's Mendon, Upton, the Blackstone Valley area, they collaborate. They put together the bus contract. It's with Vendetti Busing, and we pay a portion of the bus for the students. Right now, there's 2 buses that run, and so we pay a portion. Part of it, too, is if you're a member, like Auburn is not currently a member of the collaborative, so we pay a little bit more than some other districts that might be members, but it's per the student that rides the bus, so.
So then they send someone to Auburn, a little bus to Auburn?
No, basically, the student that, they have to go to, the bus stop for Auburn is Goretti's Market in Millbury, so the parents have to make sure that the student gets there, and,
Gotcha, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, any questions?
If we have a student in there, why wouldn't we have an agreement to bring the price down? Like, I heard you correctly, you said that you don't believe that we're a part of the busing agreement.
we're part of the busing collaboration. Auburn itself is not a member of the group. If you're a member of that collaborative, different towns are members of different collaboratives. We're not a specific member, so we pay a non-member rate, as opposed to if we were a member, we pay a little less. But everybody that is on that bus has to pay the transportation. It's just a little bit, we pay a little bit more maybe than another district might, because per student.
So we're like out of district, because our vocational district is Bay Path, so we're out of district for Norfolk, but we do participate in the busing.
Yeah, and the reason we do that is it's very beneficial for us, because for us to run a little bus out there every day, just from Auburn to Norfolk, would be a lot more money than we're paying for the overall transportation for the year. So,
Any other questions? No? Okay, so we have a department request for the Norfolk account of $54,355. Town manager recommendation is the same, $54,355. That's an increase of $8,843, or 19.43% to fiscal 2023. Do I hear a motion to recommend?
Motion to recommend?
Okay, we have a motion and a second to recommend. All in favor, Kevin?
Yes.
Ed?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Patrick?
Yes.
Diane? And the chair votes yes. So that's all set, and we have a transfer for Norfolk. So in the back of our, next to last in the packet, okay, so we have a transfer. The transfer's coming from the reserve account amount requested, $4,557 going to the Norfolk assessment line. Reason is that the transportation part of the assessment, the costs have exceeded what was estimated. So will this get us through till the end of the year? This will be, okay.
Yes.
Any questions?
So could you just cover what why the cost was exceeded if we're in an agreement for the transportation cost for a school year?
Basically, it wasn't the transportation costs, it was the tuition. The tuition was, there was an adjustment made specifically to the tuition that we weren't aware of. So it came forward that there was an increase in cost, so we were just short. We were able to cover it with, we had a little bit extra money in there, so we were able to cover it, but that we were short the $4,000.
And that explains I didn't really ask on the big difference from last year, this year on the regular educational assessment. So that's why the tuition increased, why was the big percentage increase between last fiscal year and this fiscal year?
There was a special increment that we had to pay that we weren't aware of. So, and it got billed in this year's billing. So we will keep that in mind moving forward. But every year they increase their tuition costs every year. And then busing, we try to negotiate, or best guess scenario, what it's going to cost. The thing with transportation, it can switch is because there's districts that will jump in and out. Like, they might not have a student, so they might be out. They might decide to do whatever they're going to do with another group and transfer that way. So it depends upon how many actual districts are in the collaborative group that year, and that kind of affects the cost of the transportation as well.
Madam, through the chair,
Yes.
now that that was risen, that point came up, you said there was a special incremental cost. So my concern is are we invoiced with them, and is it a clear invoice? Or is it a report that we're obligated to fish through to figure out what we should pay them?
No, there's a clear, there was just an increment increase, and we have that clearly on an invoice. We were expecting one amount for the tuition, and there was an incremental increase added to the tuition. I followed up with them and spoke with Town Manager Kasanovich prior, and we knew that we were going to have a deficit of the $4,500.
So is it fair to say that the incremental increase appeared after the budget was approved and that there was an awareness not before?
Right, right.
Exactly what I thought. Thank you.
No
Timing issue.
Okay. So, do I hear a motion to approve the transfer for $4,557?
Motion to approve.
Okay, all in favor? Kevin?
Yes.
Ed? Yes. Michael? Yes. Patrick?
Yes.
Diane? And the chair votes yes. So that's all set.
Thank you very much for your support.
What other business, we have some minutes. The minutes were emailed to us. And, bye, ladies, thank you. Bye, thank you. Does anyone have any questions or concerns regarding the March 1st minutes that were emailed? Yes, no? Okay, so they're accepted as presented. So let's talk about who's coming next week. Let's see, this is the 22nd, next week is the 29th. So we have DPW, big department, and the finance department is also coming, or we'll talk about that. Accounting, assessing, treasury, collections, debt interest, pension benefits, solid waste, and we're gonna vote in the youth commission. And that would be it, right?
Do you want Bay Path in next
Oh, right, Bay Path. Well, yeah. So Bay Path, okay, and on the 5th, when does the warrant's closed, right? Town meeting warrant? When will we be able to get that?
So we are presenting to the board a draft warrant that's already been sent to Attorney Hennigan for review and modification if necessary. They will get it, and I think once they approve it, we can send it off to you in draft form.
So I think that would hit all of our departments then too, right? Great. Any questions?
So next week is a heavy week. I mean, we have a lot of DPW, so don't know if you want to leave it at 6:30, do we want to try to start at 6, or keep it at 6:30 and go later, or we'll do whatever?
Is everyone available at 6? Yes, Diane, are you available at 6? She said yes? All right, 6 o'clock would be good then. Yep. Yes.
That'll help.
We could go to, you don't want to go to 11 or so?
I don't mind going to 11.
Why not?
We've
Just
done it before.
Dive right, I know, yeah, we're not going to do that again. All right.
Patrick, you remember those days?
All right, any other questions?
Motion to adjourn? Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to adjourn. All in favor? Kevin?
Yes.
Ed?
Yes.
Michael?
Yes.
Patrick?
Yes.
Diane? And chair votes yes. Thank you. We're done.